If you're not where you want to be financially, then chances are you're doing at least one of these 10 poor money habits. First of all, starting a budget and then never checking it again. It's all good and well putting it down on paper or on a spreadsheet, filling out all the details. But then if you're not checking it on a regular basis, maybe weekly or fortnightly, just to make sure you're keeping things where they're supposed to be and you've not overspent in certain categories, then it's a large waste of time. It's all good and well you saying you're going to have £200 for this and then spending £250, but unless you're checking on a regular basis, you're not going to know until it's too late. And the last thing you want to do is be running out of money before you get paid again. Number 2 is making just the minimum debt repayments. For example, on your credit cards. If you're paying the minimum payment on your credit card, then chances are you're paying interest. And that interest on a credit card is no joke. It will be one of the highest interest rates you've got on any of your debt. Sometimes running into the 30s in terms of percentage. Get those paid off, and if you are going to use a credit card, try and make sure you clear it every single month. There are much cheaper ways to finance, but the credit card is a great way to provide protection. So even I use one every month. I will use it, but I will clear the entire balance because the interest payments are very difficult to cover when things start to get out of control. Number 3 is lifestyle creep every time you get a pay rise. Now, everybody loves getting a pay rise, whether it's 2%, 10%, and what you should do is treat yourself to a portion of that by increasing your budget, but for the most part, trying to be sensible with it. Either increase your savings, your investments, or your pensions, or more importantly, add a bit more to clear down your debts. It's great to think that you're on an extra £10,000 a year, but if you don't do something with a bit more intent with it, then you will very quickly start to see a rise in your general living costs that you won't be able to scale back as easily later on. Number 4 is ignoring your pension. Now, if you're like me in your 20s or even early 30s, you're thinking retirement is such a long way off, I'm not going to start saving for that yet, then please don't make that mistake. The benefit of investing very early is that you can benefit from compound interest longer. The more time your money spends invested, even if it's via a pension, the greater it can grow in the later years. And that is where most of the growth happens, towards the later years before you withdraw it. So at the very minimum, look up how much you need to contribute to maximize your employer's contributions. For some, it will be you put in 5, they'll put in 3, but some are way more generous than that. You could put in 5, maybe 7, and they might put in 10, maybe 12. I've worked at companies where they've done that. And over a long period of time, that will give you a very, very comfortable pension and retirement, but more importantly, give you the flexibility to be able to retire early if you want to. Nobody really wants to work into their late 60s, and who knows, depending on your age, it could be 70s, whereas your private pension you can usually access around 10 years earlier. So if you build it up now and think about it in your 20s or even your early 30s, give it enough time to grow, then you can be in control of when you retire. Number 5 is trying to out-earn your bad spending habits. Now, we touched on budgeting earlier on. That is really where the crux of it lies. If you can get your budget spot on, it will stop you kind of trying to drive your salary forward just to cater for your poor spending habits. Try and get it in check. Be really honest with yourself. If you're in a relationship, sit with your partner and sit down and go through and talk through some of your expenses and hopefully hold each other to account so that you can not make those same mistakes, because they just get bigger. So the more money you earn, if you're wasting £200 whilst you're on 30k, you got to 40k, maybe you're wasting £400-500 a month, and it just starts to snowball, and you never feel like you've got any extra money despite doubling your salary over time, and that's because it's poor spending habits. So get a budget in place, be very, very honest with yourself, and only spend money on things that you enjoy or enrich your life or prepare for your future, or for family time and stuff. Number 6 is saying you'll save whatever is left. Your budget should really start with the absolute core expenses being put aside first. So your household stuff, the things you need to live, run your car, whatever, the absolute core must-have expenses. And after that, it should be savings. Before your kind of guilt-free spending, that sort of thing, make sure your savings, investments, pensions, all of that stuff is covered, and then spend what is left. It's called paying yourself first, essentially. Obviously, living expenses are non-negotiables, but after that, you have to put some money aside with intent to actually save for stuff or invest or put into your pension for later on down the line. And you have to be strict with that and try to focus on that before saying you've got money for going out and takeaways and all of that stuff. Most people do it the other way around and just save whatever I've got left at the end of the month, I'll stick in a savings account. You should do it the other way around. Number 7 is thinking investing is only for the rich, wealthy, or experts. Anyone can get started with investing. I did it myself, literally just started a year or two ago, and anyone can do it. There's a link below if you want to get started with Trading 212, where we offer you a free fractional share with up to £100. But there are many investing videos out there. I highly recommend the book How to Own the World, which basically delves into the sorts of things you should invest in. And the long and short of it is they recommend a global ETF, which covers all of the financial markets around the world, and then some other bits and pieces in there, rather than investing in individual stocks. That's where the real skill comes in, trying to pick your stocks. And that should be left well alone from most retail investors like you and I, and should be left to the professionals that do it for their living, essentially. We should invest in ETF or exchange traded funds, which are a basket of companies where you get to buy a very small portion of them, and that is managed by people far smarter than you and I, and we just get to invest in that fund and reap the benefits of their hard work, essentially, providing things go up. Now, your capital is at risk when you invest, and the markets do go up and down, so do some more research before you get started. Number 8 is not preparing for irregular expenses. So we all know how much our gas and electric, water, phone and rent is going to be every month, but it's the things that crop up, like your MOT, your car insurance, your gifts or Christmases, birthdays, all of those things. By not budgeting for those, you just got your blinkers on, and really you are ignoring the things that you know are going to happen every single year. And so what I do is I put aside money for gifts, and basically I have a list of all the people I tend to buy birthdays and Christmas presents for, and I write a rough budget for each one, and then at the end of that I will have a total. Now, say my total for that for the entire year is £1,200. I don't know, I've got quite a few kids. Then I will just put £100 aside every month to make sure that I've got enough money. And it's called a sinking fund. A sinking fund is basically where you save money into a pot or a fund, knowing that you're going to spend it throughout the year, but it gives you the peace of mind of not having to find that money in that particular payday, because you know you've already put some money aside for it. So yeah, some of the things I just listed there, but any one-off expenses or things that you have to spend money on just once or twice a year, you should really get those totaled up, divide by 12, and then start to put that money aside each month. Number 9 is relying on your future self to fix your current spending habits. Now, we kind of touched on bad habits already, but you could get into debt now thinking, oh, well, in 10 years time, I'm going to earn 2, 3, 4 times the amount of money and I'll solve that problem then. That is absolutely a huge mistake, and one that I've done in my 20s. And although I do actually own that money now, there's no guarantee you're going to be in a better position. And believe me, if you don't already have kids yet, they're a huge expense. And so what you want to do is go into that stage of your life with having very little debt, because you need to be able to buy a house if you want to at some point. If you want to have children, there are lots of hidden expenses around having children. And then even once you've had them and your partner's back to work, or you're back to work if you're the mother in the relationship, then there are childcare costs. There are so many things, and so do not rely on something you cannot be in control with, and that is a future promotion or future pay rise. Instead, tackle those spending habits now and get into a better position. Finally, number 10 is comparing yourself to other people's highlights. Now, Instagram has created both a great platform, but also an issue in that you see other people's lives and you think they're living the dream. What they don't tell you about is how much of that spending is on credit, whether they paid for their holiday with Klarna or a credit card or a loan. You just don't know. Stop comparing yourself to others and compare yourself to a previous version of yourself. Try and reflect on how you were last year, the last 2 or 5 years, and try and measure your progress that way. Everybody is running their own race, and behind closed doors, you do not know their situation. Your next door neighbour or best friend might have a brand new Range Rover, but you don't know how they've paid for that. They may have had inheritance. They may have £80,000 worth of debt to pay for it. You just don't know. So do what is comfortable for you and sensible for you. Do not try and keep up with the Joneses, and just live your life in a sensible financial way and be financially responsible, both for you, for your family, and for your children or future children if you don't already have them yet, because these lessons you can teach them as well. If you've enjoyed this kind of content, let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to hit subscribe.